I joined utility workers when I was pretty much 17, straight out of high school. And what inspired me is my best friend was also part of the utility workers, and he never missed a meeting, never missed a union meeting. And me, at that time, I didn't know what the union was all about. I honestly had no interest in it. But the fact that my friend would never miss a meeting, no matter what, made me come out and see what it was all about. And from that first meeting in New York City with Local 1-2, I was hooked ever since. Just the solidarity and the camaraderie, just seeing that all these people come together for one common goal of just to make a better life for themselves, a living wage, affordable health care. That was enough for me, and from there I was hooked ever since.
And for me, I grew up in a union household, and I saw firsthand the benefits that the union provided me. So I think for me, what really inspired me was knowing that there was an opportunity there, an opportunity to belong to something that fought for people just like me, working class people who put in an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. And the benefits of work, the working conditions improvements, the medical, the pay raises, all of those things, and belonging to something bigger than ourselves. That's what drew me.
Kind of like what you said, Eric. I grew up in a union household as well. My dad, preached union since I was, little. And I knew that it was important for me, having worked in non-union workplaces before coming to the utility workers, I saw the benefit firsthand, of having a union behind you. And I knew that for my children, I needed to teach them what my dad had instilled in me at a young age. So that's really what inspired me to get involved.
Well, what inspired me to get more involved in my union, it was actually my shop steward who recommended me to be a shop steward. I didn't know what a shop steward was. I don't know why he wanted me to do it, but I said, hey, sure. I'm up for, taking on new tasks and learning new things. And what made me become more involved in my union was my lack of knowledge of the union. Going to the meetings and, gaining information that I wasn't able to get from my shop steward, although he was a decent one. There's more information that you get from going to those meetings and meeting all of those people, having your president shake your hands, and you realizing all the people that work hard to keep what you have. I was working my minimum wage job before I was able to work for my utility company. And you see the big difference. You see how much you get paid more, that's number one. And you also see the benefits, the health care, the pension, you just gain a lot more knowledge when you're more involved. And with me, I feel more secure when I know what's going on and I know what it takes to keep the things that I have, and they need our support. So that's why I'm involved in my union, because I need to get more members to support our membership and our officers, because that's what we're here for.
As members of this committee and just younger utility workers, what challenges do you face trying to organize other young workers?
For me, I think the greatest challenge is recognizing that our younger people, younger than myself, they think differently and they process information differently than even I did, and certainly than what my father did before me. So getting to that understanding that there's definitely a generational difference with just how they learn, and ultimately adapting to that different trend in learning, and then elevating yourself to that higher level to say, this is how they learn, and going with that and really just focusing and harnessing their potential. Because there's one thing that we can honestly say is that these new younger workers, despite all the skepticism that's out there is that they have an incredible capacity to want to learn. And that's where the rewarding element for me is. They really want to learn that information.
For me, one of my big challenges is that my local holds over 8,000 members. So for me by myself to try to reach out to those members, it gets hard. So the challenges that you face is, you know, when you meet certain people, I'm very limited to meeting people, and when I do meet them, it's hard to get them committed to something where they feel like they may not be rewarded for something. A lot of people, they want to get rewarded for, you know, coming to a meeting, they want to get a t-shirt. If they come out to an event, they want to get a button and a t-shirt. It's pretty much just trying to get people committed to do something that some of them never even thought of doing. So it's my job to persuade them and convince them and get them to understand why it's important. But you get those people who are just excited to have this job with the benefits. They don't even realize what it takes to get those benefits. So that's the challenge. It's just getting people to understand what comes behind all of the great benefits that we have.
The challenging part of getting young workers involved for me has been just piquing general interest. A lot of young workers, sometimes maybe it's their first job and they don't realize what they really have. The pay just comes, you know, and that pay didn't just come. The pay, the benefits, the security, it came from a lot of hard-fought battles from people behind us. And in order to keep it, we have to continue to fight. We have to continue to support each other. We have to continue to be together in this movement, this labor movement.
You know, building on what you said, I think for me personally, one of the challenges is that I notice is fighting against our own success. Sort of like apathy. You know, we've got the 5-day work week, we've got time and a half, vacation days. So the challenges that I see is sometimes some of our members have just become accustomed to having these things, and they don't realize what some of our predecessors have gone through to get to this point. So just understanding that it's a constant fight, it's a constant struggle to maintain these benefits, because what's going on now is now you have these corporations trying to reverse the trend, and now it's all about taking back. And we have to convince our members that unless you really get involved and fight, it's not guaranteed that you're going to retain these benefits that we've, you know, fought for so many years to get.
And I think that's what's so great about this Young Workers Initiative Committee, that it gives all of us this opportunity to educate our new, younger members of the very battles that we fought for and how hard that our forefathers and generations before us, how much they fought for these very rights. And we get the opportunity to teach these younger workers, despite how hard it is or whatever the challenges may be, we can teach them those things. And once they learn, the sky's the limit.
It's critically important to be a union member, to join the union. You know, union density in this country has been shrinking for years. It's been steadily on the decline. And the truth is, what's keeping the middle class afloat, barely afloat, in this country are the union workers. You know, the union workers and the union, the principles are all about economic fairness. It's about a living wage, it's about benefits, it's about having a standard above the poverty level. This is what's keeping the middle class afloat. So if we don't have a rise in the union density in this country, pretty soon the middle class may, unfortunately, just cease to exist. I don't mean to sound so extreme, but that's where we're headed. So it's very important. And actually it is extreme, because you're talking about going from 35% at its height to now, what, less than 7%? So it is extreme.
You know, what's so important for me to be in a union, and why a union is so important to me, It's about a fight for justice. It's about doing what's right. And that's what a union is. It's about coming together and doing the right thing. And just to try to balance the scales. We have these huge, massive employers, these big corporations, and all we're asking for is an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. And I'm proud to be a part of it.
What about those people who say, well, you know what, I don't have these benefits, so why should you have those benefits? I don't have a pension, so why should you have a pension? What do you say to that?
Why? I say, why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't you have those? You go to work every day, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You know, many of us are putting our lives on the line every day. High-risk jobs, why shouldn't you have those benefits?
And Matt said it exactly right. There is no question that someone who works 40 hours a week should not be entitled to a livable, honest wage. And to those who say that all unions do is drive up inflation, all I can say to that is look at executive compensation. That's where it's criminal. That's where it's outrageous. We're workers, and we are the lifeblood.
And Eric, you know, you hit it on the head. You know, when you spoke about fairness, what's fair? You know, we lay it on the line. I mean, we leave our blood, sweat, and tears out there. All we're asking for is fairness. So, to me, that's why it's important to join the union.
Some people, they work 30 years for a company and barely get a raise. And when they leave their job, they still have to go work another part-time job, you know? But for us, you know, we have plans, we have options. And without our union, some of those options wouldn't be available.
Also, unions are important for everyone. And when I say that, you think about these corporations who they want to just drive up profits at the lowest cost possible. But the truth is this, somebody has to buy your product, whatever it is at the end of the day, right? Whether you're selling Air Jordans or whether you're selling Apple computers, somebody has to buy these products. So if you don't want to pay us a living wage, you want to drive us to work and you want to pay us peanuts and not a fair wage for this, at the end of the day, somebody has to buy your product, right? To keep the economic engine of this country going. The only way that works is if you pay people a living wage. So I think unions are important, not just for us, but really when these corporations are fighting to hold down wages, you're really fighting against your own interest. You know, today it seems like the workforce in a lot of these companies are a lot younger. You know, it seems like no matter what company you go, the average age or the average number of years of service is 10, 12. To me, it seems like the workers today aren't concerned with longevity with one particular employer. They're looking to, I guess, put their time in at company X, get a pension that travels with them. So I think it seems like the workers aren't as concerned with the same interests that we might have had 20 years ago when it was all about we're fighting for a defined pension plan, something that's going to be there when we get to the end of that 30-year career. So I think there's been a divide in the interests of the workers. What do you guys think?
You know, I think there's even more to it than that. I think it goes deeper than that. When I look at my particular local, at my local 132, 40% of our represented workforce is eligible for retirement in the next 4 years. That is a statistic that is just staggering. And when we look at the next level, there's a huge gap between those who are ready for retirement and those who are just coming in. We have this huge gap, and so that's created this wedge of the ability for us to transfer our knowledge from our seasoned veterans onto these younger workers. And that challenge of guys who are ready to retire and their willingness to transfer that knowledge onto new younger workers coming in is a real challenge. And that's something that we have to face head on, and we have to quite honestly, we have to embrace that challenge. And I don't think it's so much that our younger workers want to get a pension from company X and go to company Y and Z. We just haven't taught them. They just don't know. And if we can give them that knowledge with this committee, and I'm confident that we can, I think we'll figure out a way to make things better again.
I most definitely agree with what both of you guys said. There is a lot more younger people in our unions than our seasoned people. A lot of people are leaving, and before our seasoned people leave, we need to gain their knowledge. I feel like the younger people in our unions, they need help gaining the knowledge. Like, I had lack of knowledge, and that's what made me want to be more involved with my union.
I definitely think that the changing age in our workforce is a challenge for our union, for the fact that we've got to get knowledge from point A to point B, and like Eric said, you got a gap between guys that are ready to retire and people that are a long ways off retirement, and nobody in between. So we got an uphill battle.
It's definitely an uphill battle, but wherever there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. And that's what this committee is all about. And that's what we're going to accomplish with the Young Workers Initiative Committee.